Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2021 Jeep Gladiator, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster base plate kit with removable arms. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, check it out, and make sure this is going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I figured it'd be useful just to address one of the main questions a lot of people wonder when it comes to setting up a flat tow, and that's what parts am I going to need? There's going to be a total of 5 main components, and usually we like to be hooked up to the motorhome and really give you a good visual of what's going on. We got some really bad weather today, so kind of stuck inside. But that in mind, you're going to have your base plate, and that's going to give us an attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. So the tow bar, connect the front of your Jeep to the back of your motorhome. Third main part will be safety cables, and these are just going to connect to the Jeep, to the back of your motorhome's hitch, and in the event of an unlikely disconnect, we're going to keep everything paired together. The fourth main part will be tow bar wiring. Again, connect to the back of the motorhome and to the front of your Jeep, and that's going to transfer the lighting functions. That way you're safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main part will be a supplemental braking system. And what that'll do is hit the brakes in your Jeep whenever you hit the brakes in your RV, helping to bring you to a more complete and predictable stop. These Gladiators are becoming pretty popular at a flat tow, and because of that, there's quite a few base plates available for them. And what one is going to be best for you really depends on a couple of things. I think one of them is the appearance. So with this one, as well as the Roadmaster Direct Connect style, those are going to be the least visible. You have 2 individual pieces that bolt to the frame, so that's really all you're going to be able to see there, as well as this bracket that they give you to mount up your electrical and your other components, which I think is convenient. But some of the others are going to have a bar that runs across the front of it. And even though you can see those, in my opinion, it's not really a huge deal because with the look of the Jeep, you know, they really don't look out of place. Something that's really important to check when you are picking out a base plate for your Gladiator is to make sure to use our drop-down menu and search for your particular setup, because when it comes to these Jeeps, you know, there's so many different editions and some that have different types of bumpers, whether they're factory or aftermarket. Not every base plate is going to work with all of them. With the Roadmaster one here, it's going to work with a lot of them out there. You know, it's hard to cover every single one, but that's where that drop-down menu comes into play. You know, enter in that information and make sure that this is going to fit your particular Jeep. If it doesn't, good news is chances are really good there's a base plate that will work. Whenever you're ready to hook up to your motorhome, the base plate is going to use these removable arms. And the way that they're going to work, just take them, put them into the base plate opening, then you'll rotate it about a quarter turn, and it'll lock into place. You have that same setup here on the other side. The one thing with this base plate is the fact that it's a crossbar style. So your tow bar, the ends of it, don't directly hook up to these arms here. There's going to be some more parts and pieces that you're going to need to pick up separately if you don't happen to have them already. If that's something you don't want to deal with, that's where the Roadmaster Direct Connect style base plate comes into play. It's the same setup, how it looks and everything, but the arms are going to be a little bit different. On the ends, there's some different style attachment points that allow your tow bar to mate up directly with them. With that said though, I actually happen to have the extra parts that we need for our crossbar style. So I'll go ahead, get those set up real quick and show you what I'm talking about. I got our extra pieces bolted up to the arms, and this is how they're going to look. And this is what makes them removable still, you know. But whenever you're getting ready to set everything up, you have these in, and then this is the crossbar. So this piece sets in there like that. And now this is what you would attach your tow bar ends to. So like I mentioned, with that direct connect style, essentially on the arms, you'll have a setup like this where the tow bar would go into. With this particular one, this will work with Roadmaster tow bars. We'll plug in and you pin them down. As well as some of the other manufacturers too. What a lot of them are doing now are making adapters. So let's say, for example, if you happen to have a Blue Ox tow bar already and you want to hold on to it, keep using it, chances are pretty good you can make it work by using that adapter, and you'll change it out and allow that to pair up with this. Ultimately, if you were to ask me would I use the Crossbar-Style, it wouldn't be my first pick for sure. Honestly, I'd probably go with the direct connect style of base plate. Just less parts that you're going to need, a little bit more straightforward to hook up, and a little more simple. But you know, if you already have these parts, and that's why our neighbor today went with this, because they already had these parts from a previous flat tow. That's what they're experienced with and used to dealing with this crossbar. So in that situation, it definitely makes sense to do that. As far as the installation goes, really not too bad on these Jeeps. You remove your front bumper, everything's pretty easy to get to, and you do have to do some drilling, but it's pretty wide open, so shouldn't really give you a ton of issues. But if you're going to be doing this yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Jeep. And the first thing that we can do over on the passenger side frame rail, kind of just behind our bumper, we're going to have an electrical connection that we need to disconnect. This is what that connector looks like. And to separate it, you can just push down on the center of the tab. Sometimes too, you can just pop it off from the frame, make it easier to work with. You push down on the center of that tab and you can separate them. On top of our bumper, kind of just behind it in this little opening, we're going to have a fastener on each side that we can get removed. Here's that push pin, and to get these out, you can just take a flathead screwdriver and pry underneath the head of it. Then underneath the base, you're able to work it out. And from this point on, whatever we do to one side of the vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. What you do from here is going to really depend on what submodel you have, because the Rubicons are a little bit different from some of the others, so on and so forth. But you can check your instructions and give you some guidance from there. In any case, there's going to be a rock guard or a shield underneath here, and ours is actually missing already. It come in this way, so I'm not gonna have to worry about it. But if yours is there, which it should be, the way you'd remove it, kind of along the bumper here on the front edge, there will be some push pin fasteners similar to the ones we just took out up top there. So you'd pop them out, and then usually kind of down here in this area, you'll have a screw on each side, I believe 7 or 8 millimeter head. And that plastic piece will come out of the way. Then you'll usually have a metal piece that runs along through here as well, that you can remove with 2 16 millimeter head bolts. You'll pull them out, and then the instructions kind of tell you that metal piece, you'll cut a lot of it out and just have the little tabs left. And you end up putting those back on. And with that metal piece that's usually here, when you cut that, you know, it's pretty stout metal, so you have to use a Sawzall or you know, some type of grind cutoff wheel, something along those lines to get that trimmed out. If you look at the back of our bumper now, the whole bumper is actually going to have to get removed. So on each side of the car, we're going to have 2 nuts inside of the frame rail, and then 2 more exactly like it just on the outside of the frame rail. And you can use an 18 millimeter socket to get them removed. And what I like to do is just leave one on hand tight. You know, that way when we get all of them removed, the bumper's not just going to fall off. If it does move around, at least that nut will stop it. So I'll just work my way down and up and over here and get all these pulled off. So I was able to get those nuts removed that I left on hand tight, and now you should be able to just kind of work the bumper off of the front of the Jeep, and we'll set it off to the side. We're gonna have these frame stiffeners, on each side of our frame there, and we're gonna remove them. So you have this 16mm head bolt. Pull that out, and we're not going to be reinstalling these pieces here, so get that out of the way. Do the same thing to get this inside one removed. What we're able to do now is enlarge a hole in the side of our frame. So there's this hole here, and we're going to take the drill bit and enlarge it all the way through to the other side of our frame. If your frame does not have this hole, what you can do is take your base plate, roughly get all that into position and lined up, and then just use the base plate as a, where the opening is, as a guide where you're going to need to drill. So something you might have to do, but with that said, we'll go ahead and get this ran through. We'll grab our base plate now, and these are going to be side specific, so check the diagram and the instructions. Kind of a quick way to tell though where the safety chain opening kind of bends. It's going to go towards the center of our Jeep. So you'll take these and just kind of work that up like that. And just for the time being here, I'm going to take the factory bolts that we had pulled out from here and just put those in a couple threads to kind of hold the base plate up. We can grab one of these long bolts now, and then you put on a flat washer. This is going to go through here like that, but there's a gap, in between the frame and our base plate. So they give you these pipe spacers. Kind of line that up. Push your bolt through it and through the frame. Before you push it all the way out the other side, you'll have another spacer. That's going to go through, and then you can get it all the way through the base plate. Take a flat washer, a split lock washer, and a hex nut, and just get a couple turns on it. For this attachment point, you can take another long bolt and a flat washer, push it right through all the way out to the other side. Just like the one we did, where it comes out, take the flat washer, split lock washer, and a couple turns on that nut. A lot of times for this attachment point down here, there's already this hole in the frame from the factory. Sometimes it's just not going to be perfect, more often than not. So I'm just going to take a grinding bit, or you can take a regular drill bit if you want. Kind of clean it up a little bit, and then we're going to take this shorter bolt, put on a split lock washer and a flat washer, as well as some red Loctite. So we'll put some of this on the threads here. Push this through the hole. What that bolt is going to attach to is this handle nut. All right, and the way this is going to work, there's an opening right on the bottom of the frame. We'll push that up in there, and you kind of see, line it up with the hole there, and we'll get this started hand tight. Once you get everything together, if you kind of look down from the top of the base plate, you notice any gaps that are pretty significant between the base plate and your frame. They give you a bunch of extra washers like this, And usually you don't have to do any of this, but in our case, this one spot here where this bolt was, had a little gap there. And so I just took one of them flat washers and pushed it down in there to line it up. Something you can do too is take the washer and put a piece of tape on it and drop it down. That helps sometimes, but got that in there, and just check them all. You know, if you see those big gaps or significant gaps, that's how you can fix it. But now what you can do is take this bolt out, you know, regardless if you have a gap there or not. We're gonna take all the hardware and make sure we get this red Loctite on the threads. Once you have the red Loctite on all the threads, kind of eyeball everything, make sure it lines up. Sometimes these will be a little bit off, which is pretty normal. You can take a pry bar or something if you need to. Get it as close as you can. And once we're happy with it, for the new bolts that we all put in, you can take a 3/4 inch socket and wrench and snug them down. Switch back out to our 16 millimeter, snug up the stock bolts that we put back in. Once everything is sorted, we need to make sure the hardware is torqued down. So I got my torque wrench, and there's some specs in the instructions that you can look at and make sure these are all completely tight. So once you have the base plate torqued down, check and make sure that, you know, it lines up with the holes here in the bumper flange. If they're off a little bit, you can take your pry bar, kind of manipulate it to get them to line up, or come in with a grinder, drill bit, just kind of clean the holes up. That way when we put the bumper on, it's going to actually go back in place and won't have to fight it. So once you got that done, the handle here that's still hanging off from the handle nut on the bottom, you can get rid of that. You can just bend it a bunch and it'll eventually just break off, or come back and, you know, cut it with a pair of snips. At this point, you know, once you get the other side, the other base plate on, just set up the exact same way. It'd be a great time to start thinking about some of your other components, like a braking system and wiring. And a lot of times those are somewhat easier to get in place with the bumper out of the way. You just got a lot more room to work. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, get started on a couple of other things. And you know, when the time comes, we'll revisit this, take our bumper, and get it reinstalled. At this point, we're ready to reinstall our bumper. And the kit is going to come included with this bracket here to make it easier to hook up your wiring and everything. And it's almost easier to set this up now with the bumper off of the vehicle as opposed to the other way around. Now in our case, it's pretty simple because since that underbody panel was missing, don't really have to worry about it. And so I just used the spacers that they give you. All right, and they give you some nuts and bolts, bolted that up. It uses the existing holes where that underbody panel would utilize to get it secured. So if you're putting the panel back on, it might be a good idea to put that on, you know, you get it trimmed out and everything, put it on, and then bolt this up. Or if anything, you can always come back and do this at the very end. Entirely up to you. So just kind of thinking out loud. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and get our bumper back on. When it comes to getting the bumper back on, really nothing special. It's just going to get reinstalled the opposite way that we removed it. Once you tighten the bumper back down, you know, you can plug in your electrical and everything. If you haven't already sorted that underbody panel, get that dealt with. And once that is done, you'll be in pretty good shape. But that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster baseplate kit with removable arms on our 2021 Jeep Gladiator.